there folks, it's your favourite reviewer MJ Knight here. And I know what you're thinking. This looks like special features. It is and it isn't. The reason for this, I felt the time was right for a name change, and because special features is something you associate more with DVD extras, which was pointed out to me by a friend of mine. I ran with Random DC's idea to call it special features after someone else had movie night without the K, and I didn't want to get any confusion, so I decided to make a name change. And one of the little extra additions I'm going to be adding to this successor, this is not a new thing, is and isn't, it's going to be the successor to special features, so it's carrying on what you know about special features, but it's actually going to add little bits and pieces to it. And one of the things I'm going to do now, starting with this first ticket, I review movies, so we have a play on going to the movie theaters. I'm actually going to add on little extra content in regards to things I may have left out when I was doing the review outside the cinema, and stuff that I may have forgotten to do, and I can add bits and pieces more in, not to pad it out, but just to give it somewhat more, how should we say, more content that makes the review seem entertaining and informative. And with that, we shall cut to me outside the theatres. Hey there folks, back in Bristol today to watch the very anticipated Need for Speed. Now, we've had 6 renditions of Fast and Furious, and whilst there are some movies, 4th one's kind of the weaker one in my honest opinion, we're now set for the possibility of a brand new franchise in Need for Speed. Now, originally, I wasn't going to watch this movie because, I thought just another car movie, but as soon as Scott Waugh said no CG, that sold it for me. You got rising star Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad and legendary Hollywood actor Michael Keaton in this, along with Dominic Cooper of Captain America and Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Yeah, try and say that with a straight face. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter fame. And considering it's got that badass 2014 GT500 Shelby Mustang, along with the debut of the 2015 Ford Mustang, which is the 50th anniversary of the Mustang, it's gotta be worth a look. In 2 hours, you will know my exact opinion about Need for Speed. Okay, I've just come out from watching Need for Speed, and all I can say to this is, damn. Aaron Paul as Toby Marshall, really liked him. First of all, the guy can act, which is more I can say than for some Hollywood actors. Not naming names, you know how I don't play like that. As I mentioned, Aaron Paul can act. You look at him at first glance and you think, oh, he's kind of a pretty boy, but he's got that pretty boy look. But as you go along through the movie, you know that this guy is Hollywood's next rising male action star, because he not only has a look that the women will go crazy for, but the guy is such an amazing actor, because there are specific points in this movie where his acting is so convincing, you're actually feeling his pain. You can actually see what he's going through. And there were a couple of times, 1 or 2 tears rolled out of my eye, because I legitimately felt his pain with what he went through at some stages. So to say that it's justified with the good feedback that he's gotten from his time on Breaking Bad, it's justified. He's, like I say, a very solid actor. And this is like the nerd in me talking, but if and when Hollywood gets to make a Knight Rider movie, this guy should be Michael Knight. Personal approval. Imogen Poots as Julia, liked her. Comes across as a bit stereotypically stuck-up-nosed British most of the time, but kind of likeable. when we first see Imogen Poots in the movie, she does come across as being kind of stuck up a little bit. And that's a stereotype. I don't like the way Hollywood gets actresses to portray English girls. In this, her character, Julia Madden, is very knowledgeable about the cars that she's looking at and that she drives at 2 stages of the flick. And she gets surprised by Toby Marshall quite a few times in this flick, and we do get to see, like I say, as the movie progresses, the layers are peeled away, and you've actually got a very caring woman that's full of character, and that's something I'm glad to see. Scott Mescudi and Michael Keaton are the comic relief of this movie. They're cracking one-liners, narking on people and getting under their skin. I like it. As I mentioned before, Michael Keaton, who plays a retired racer due to health complications, who plays a radio disc jockey called Monarch, every time he's on screen, you love him. You just love this very snarky, comedic, intelligent wit he has about him. And even as the Daily Own is going on, he reads everything. He understands the situation, and he puts 2 and 2 together with what goes on. And it's like I've said, really established, refined actor in Hollywood that really, really needs more screen time. You know, just like with Peter Weller getting his first movie in Star Trek Into Darkness for, I can't remember how long. Hollywood is beginning to recognize and remember that these actors really contributed a lot to the movie business back in the day, and they're recognizing them again. It's like, hey, there's still plenty of opportunities for you. You're perfect for these roles. And Michael Keaton, I think he was on equal par with his performance to Aaron Paul. My opinion. Right, Scott Mescudi as Benny. Like I mentioned earlier, he and Michael Keaton are the comic relief of this movie in literal spades. If Keaton has this veteran snarky wit, then Mescudi as Benny, or Maverick, as he wants people to call him as his nickname. He's got this chip on his shoulder in a good way. I mean, he does kind of take himself a little bit seriously, but the way he does it actually pays dividends to Toby and company as they, progress through the flick. And I think Scott is another one of those names that he's going to get picked out of this movie, and he's going to get more and more opportunities as he progresses with each movie he goes into. I found he was very entertaining, very funny, and very witty. And like I say, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets put into another high-profile movie. And of course, if they do Need for Speed 2, or possibly do a movie on Need for Speed Most Wanted, the 2005 one, not that one in 2012. I think it was 2012. But yeah, Mescudi, very good. I liked him a lot. Mr. Cooper as Dino Brewster, or as Monarch calls him, Dino Bambino. Hey, you said that, not me. He plays a lovable douchebag in this movie, although you can't stand why he does what he does in the story. At the same time, he does it so suave and so cool. You're sort of thinking, okay, I don't like you, but that was impressive. And Dominic is one of those actors that, ever since Captain America, the First Avenger, he is getting a little more and more noticed. And that is a good thing. along with Tom Hiddleston, ever since he played Loki in the Avengers, he is getting much, much more noticed, and it's a good thing. It's actually nice to see more and more British actors actually getting notoriety in Hollywood, and hopefully the same will happen to Dominic a little bit more, and to Henry Cavill, because I think him playing Superman in Man of Steel will open up doors for him. My personal approval. The cinematography is just badass from start to finish. The way that like I say, aside from this little CG of how they show horses being converted into that 2014 Mustang, there is no CG done for the stunts or the driving, and I'm glad to see that. As you're well aware, as I mentioned in the preview, the director mentioned that this movie has no CG. And personally, from my perspective as a long-time movie enthusiast, I foresee this as a good thing. When you consider that CG has been used to the point of exhaustion, and just the way that studios abuse the use of CG where it's not even necessary, it's actually very refreshing to see a car movie have that very organic and stunt choreography and just driving choreography done in real time. Because Scott said that he wanted this to feel like Steve McQueen's Bullet, when everything was done, legitimately. Well, it'd be very intriguing to try and use computer technology in a 60s movie, but I think if anything, it would have looked terrible in the 60s if they had tried to pull that back then. But it was nice that it just had this real feel to it, because then the actors' responses are genuine and organic, and they're not having to fake everything out. And that is the thing with CG. Although there are things in CG that can't be done in real time, via the same token, it's the reactions from the actors and the crew that are so key to a movie, that if they've got their eye actually looking at what's going on, then the actors can buy into it, and so can the audience, and then that always works out really well. Story's well written. I'm not going to go into spoiler territory because I'm trying to avoid that, but it's one it's a pulse racing experience. That is the best I can sum it up with this. George and John Gatins wrote the script for this flick, and with George writing the screenplay. Now, I'm not going to give away spoilers. I may give you a tiny look through the keyhole, but one of the things that is going to start now, one of the principles that Real Features is going to do, is I'm not going to spoil the movie for you, because one, you want to see it for yourself and be able to react to it, and two, it's actually nice to go into a movie and actually see things for yourself and find things out for yourself. Apart from that, there's plenty of time to tell the story when I do the DVD and Blu-ray reviews later in the year in the run-up to Christmas. So with that said, really well-written script. The characters were given time to develop, and you can sort of see the rivalry and the tension between some characters. I felt a lot of development time was placed on Imogen and Aaron, but when you consider that's your leading male and that's your leading female, then that's kind of a no-brainer. The characters bounce off each other quite well. There's a lot of witty banter and sometimes a little snarky banter, but again, that's actually kind of refreshing. The story is a very pulse-racing experience, to put it bluntly, and it does start off a little bit slow, but once it actually gets to the actual point of the story, of why this movie is here, it then starts to take things up a notch, and you actually go on this journey where it hardly ever gives you time to breathe. And for a car movie, I like that. most definitely a good flick.
This movie gets a solid must. See you next time.